Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums in the Co-Captain's Chairs. Once again, for this part two of some Pasta Prog, we've got the professor of prog, Mr. Ken Golden from the Laser's Edge, and Rand Kelly. What's going on, guys?
Hey.
Hello.
Hello. Woo. Imagine
Little Barry Godber to start the day.
Thank God you didn't go any lower than that, man. I don't know. I don't want to know what's going on down there.
Not much.
So if you sat in our ranking, our top five favorites from Banco del Mutuo Soccorso, here we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to give you our top five favorites from Premiata Forneria Marconi, otherwise known as PFM. And we're going to start at number five. We're going to work our way to number one, and we'll have Rand kick us off with his number five here today.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, my history with this band goes back to 1973. I found out about him through Greg Lake talking about him everywhere he could, and thought to myself, maybe we better check into this band. If they're signed to Manticore, they must be pretty special. So we bought, like me and my friends were buying their early albums and really digging them and everything. But anyway, moving right along, my number five is this.
Dracula.
This is freaking phenomenal. This is symphonic, progressive, operatic. I mean, if they would have used this music on Interview with the Vampire, who knows what could have happened. But this is 2 discs. I just found out it was a 2 disc because I owned a single disc a long time before this. But I don't know what year this came out, like 2005, maybe.
2005, yeah. 2005.
Yeah, this is so, I can open it up. It's got a big booklet and everything. But that top disc keeps falling out, so I got to kind of tilt it back. But anyways, this is incredible. This is like an Andrew Lloyd Webber kind of thing, I mean, they just threw the kitchen sink at this, and this music is freaking scary. It's kind of like Universe Zero heresy kind of stuff. I love it. I chose it as my number five. I really don't know anything about the titles, because they're all in Italian, but it's 2 discs, Alto 1 and Alto 2.
Wasn't it music for like an opera or something like that? Or
yeah, it's definitely an opera. Yeah, they hired some guy to sing and everything. That PFM does all the music in the background, and then you have an orchestra and a choir and opera singers. I mean, it's just way over the top. It's like a Italian Andrew Lloyd Webber. That's the only thing I could describe it. But I'm really glad I got it. And it's real cheap. I mean, you can get it on Discogs for about $20. Really surprised.
It's their best latter days, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
I'm going to disagree with that. But that's
okay. That's cool. There's probably some I haven't heard. I've heard a few of them, but anyway. Ken, what do you got?
I'll say one for an honorable mention. My number five. I actually really like Banco. I focused on the 70s. I didn't because after the 70s, like Banco, they put out some really terrible records, and then they kind of had a resurgence and started getting more into prog again. So the Dracula was a good one. I haven't heard that in a long time. So, but again, I focused on the 70s, and there's much more variation in the band sound in PFM than there was, say, Banco.
Yep.
And my number five is Chocolate Kings. And by then, the band incorporated Bernardo Lanzetti on vocals. He was originally in Aqua, and he became the face of the band. And he's a bit of an acquired taste. At best, he reminds quite a bit of Peter Gabriel era Genesis. How Peter Gabriel sounded when he was in Genesis. At his worst, he has this vibrato that will absolutely drive you insane.
Puppy Saint Marie.
His vocals on the last track, Paper Charms, it's nothing short of annoying. I mean, so the album, it's sung in English, so that's a drawback. But it has all the prog elements. In fact, it kind of moves a little bit more in the direction of the first two albums. I mean, it is a solid album. When Lanzetti's good, he's really good. When he's bad, you want to punch him in the face. But it just falls a little bit behind the others in rankings, but only just a little bit. I mean, again, they were a consistently great band in the 70s. And Chocolate Kings, for a lot of people, because it was in English, that was their introduction to the band. So like Banco, they were signed to Manticore. This is the Italian pressing. The U.S. pressing had different cover artwork, but I like the little fat lady. I like this one better. So that's my number 5.
I will say Lanzetti at his worst reminds me of Roger Chapman from Family at his worst.
A lot of people compare him to Roger Chapman as well. Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't think.
Yeah, I can hear that.
When he's doing that, like kind of like weird falsetto type thing, I'm just like, oh man, because I know he's a better singer than that. Both of these guys actually, but anyway, I digress. I'll cover more of that in a second. So my number 5 is going to be Jet Lag from 1977. I like this album a lot, actually. It's very different though. So here, this is the second album with Bernardo on vocals. And like Ken mentioned, he kind of becomes these albums they spend more time on vocals, and it kind of becomes his band to an extent. But what's really cool about this album, you got a guy called Jan Patrick Jivas, I think that's how he says his name, who plays fretless bass. And he's terrific. He's absolutely terrific. And I don't know whether it's all on him or not, but this whole album has more of a jazz fusion flavor than the more pastoral, acoustic folky prog of the early albums. And some really interesting stuff on here. You got Peninsula, which is the opening. I mean, what other album opens with like a little solo acoustic classical guitar piece, right? It's absolutely incredible. Then you got the title track Jet Lag, which is 9 minutes long. It's kind of airy prog meets, jazz rock, got really nice bass, electric piano. But like right off the bat, every time Bernardo starts to sing and he goes into that warbly falsetto thing, I'm just kind of like, oh man, it's like, did we really need that in this song? Because the song is really great. You've got what else? Storia in LA, which is absolutely terrific. It's kind of like this, sounds like classic Jean-Luc Ponty. It's got great violin, great Moog solos, really, really good fusion-y stuff. You got the Cerco la Lengua, which is a really great track. Left-Handed Theory, another really cool song. You got the Closing Traveler. And there's some just killer guitar work on here. This is a fusion album with vocals. But the funny thing is, as great as the music is, I just listened to this again yesterday, and it confirmed what I've always said about this album. Take out all the vocals and you have one of the great fusion albums of the 70s. It's almost like the vocals did not even need to be on here.
Absolutely.
And it's almost, to me, it almost sounds like when he starts singing, I'm like, just shut up and let the guys continue doing what they were doing, right? And he's not a terrible singer, but it just doesn't mesh for me. So Norm, I don't really mind his vocals that much on Chocolate Kings. I mind them on here quite a bit. And then maybe it's because the music is so different on this album.
It's a clash. It's a clash.
It's a real clash. So I think musically, this is outstanding. This album is a beast. I just wish it was all instrumental, but it's still really, really good.
I find him a little more comfortable. I think for me, he's a little more comfortable on Jet Lag as a singer, but I know exactly what you're saying. It's he's a little bit like a fish out of water, musically.
Yeah, it's almost like they're using him on this album as another instrument, right? So like, you'll get this wonderful violin solo and a guitar solo and a Moog solo, and then he comes in, and I'm like, oh Jesus, please go away, right? It's just to me, it's just not needed. And I love classic 70s fusion, right? I love it. And I have come down on a lot of fusion bands who were around at that time who would occasionally throw some vocals in. It just doesn't work. You don't need vocals in fusion music. And this is a perfect example of it. But a really good album though, otherwise. If you don't mind the vocals, there's lots to love on there. So back to Rand.
Okay, there's a couple of interesting things about that album, and I would like to mention that. First of all, Mauro Pagani leaves PFM and they get some guy named Gregory Block. He's great. Who is he? Where did he come from? Nobody knew. And also what's weird, it's on Asylum Records. David Geffen signed that band. Just wrap your head around that.
He was in a band. Greg Block was in a band called String Cheese, and then he was in It's a Beautiful Day.
Oh, was he? Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So he came from It's a Beautiful Day, and they recorded the album in L.A. and London. So I think my guess is that was the connection.
I saw them in 1972 in Vegas, open for Humble Pie. Clem Clemson. It was the Smoking Tour. That's how old I am.
That's a weird matchup right there, huh?
Yeah, it was. And Slade was the middle band.
Jeez.
Slade was insane. And the It's a Beautiful Day guy, the guitar player, his amp blew up. And he didn't have any sound for like 3 songs, and he was going crazy. I mean, I could understand that. I would too, being a performer. Anyways, moving right along. You can tell it's early in the morning for me. My number 4 is going to be, I know Ken's going to say I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
This is all I knew about. I didn't know about the Fat Lady and all that, but this is kind of cool. This is a Manticore. I like the way that candy bar gets eaten.
That's a tasty looking chocolate right there, huh?
And at the end, they throw away their littering.
Tasty looking
This is a
chocolate
great
with Fat
album.
Lady. What do you think?
This is a great album, and we were really surprised that PFM took on Bernardo Lanzetti, because we'd already found out about, or maybe it was later, Aqua Fragile. I remember getting Mass Media Stars on some Impact Records or something like that. It was an offshoot of Passport, and I have a couple of those, and yeah, I thought Mass Media Stars was great. I've never to this day heard the first Aqua Fragile. But anyways, I like Bernardo Lanzetti. He does. The first thing I heard when I heard his vibrato was I thought it was a male version of Buffy St. Marie, because she really had a hell of a vibrato when she sang. Not that I'm a fan or anything, but I heard her on the radio and stuff. But anyways, I say everything Ken said about that album. I mean, it starts from under, and it goes to Harlequin, which is really beautiful. Chocolate Kings is a great song. Chocolate King sounds like something Gentle Giant would have come up with around 1976. Just has that.
Is RAM breaking up for you?
Yeah, I don't know what happened to your phone or your computer, Ram, but your audio
breaking up.
Totally breaking up.
Yeah, you guys sound bad to me. I don't know.
Yeah, Ken sounds fine.
I always sound great.
I don't know. I sound perfect to me.
That sounds better now. Yeah.
When you guys talk, you sound distorted to me.
Wow.
All right.
I'm so sorry.
Ken, what do you got?
All right. Well, I'm not going to elaborate too much. My number 4 is Jet Lag, and I think we kind of nailed it. We did that album. It's a fine album. It's them doing like a jazz rock album, and you'll enjoy it as much as you enjoy Lanzetti. Really, I mean, he's the barometer for you. For me, I can tolerate him because I think the music's really, really good. The one anecdote I have is that Michael Mannering was staying here one time back when we were doing one of the McGill Mannering Stevens albums, and he was telling me how he was doing some clinics in Italy with his friend Patrick Givas. And I said, Patrick Givas from PFM? You know him? He's like, oh yeah, he's a good friend of mine. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that blew me away. So yeah, he's great. I mean, he plays fretless bass on the album, and it's like the Deterra for PFM. It's the outlier in the catalog. I mean, it's a change of direction, and then after this, they went in like a folk direction, and there was nothing else like this album. Solid album.
Yeah, I agree. My number 4 is Chocolate Kings with the non-chocolate album cover. Yeah, I like this album a lot. I'm pretty sure it's all English language vocals, but here it was written that way as opposed to taking Italian songs and then redoing them in English. So I don't mind this as much. It's Bernardo's first album with the band. I don't mind his vocals on this album, actually. I think this album is kind of harder hitting. It's a little bit aggressive in spots. From Under, which is the kickoff track, really rocks. It's got his operatic vocals, a lot of really cool electric guitars. The bass lines are just immense on this particular album and that song. Plenty of keyboards. Harlequin, another great track. It's got more of like their folky side, got really nice acoustic guitars, and then gives way to some blistering electric guitars and violin. Full band comes back. It's kind of like a tale of two songs in one, which is really nice. Title track is great. Out on the Roundabout is got folk, it's got jazz in it, a lot of prog rock keyboards, another really, really cool track. And then Paper Charms finishes it all out, 8 minutes and change. A lot of bombast on that. Excellent album, I think. Really, really excellent album. It kind of, you can kind of see where they were probably going to be going next with Jet Lag, but it still captures a lot of the earlier part of the catalog. So it's kind of like an interesting transition album that has elements of, both those couple of eras early on. But yeah, Chocolate Kings, number 4. Back to Ren.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Oh, it's
I
sort
have
of.
a problem with my internet, I think. Yeah, it's booting. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, just, coming
Yeah.
through like that.
Yeah, you guys sound terrible. I had a gauge going down. It went from 78, now it says 10. I don't know what that gauge is, but it's dying of death. I don't know what's going on.
Maybe you should reboot or something.
I don't even know if it's gonna work.
Give us your number 3. Soldier on. Soldier on as best you can.
Soldier on. Yeah.
Going to be another tie, because this is what I grew up on. These two, I love these albums a lot. And
So for those watching,
they
that's
have-
Photos of Ghost and World Became the World. Right
I
there.
can't hear you at all, Pete.
No?
Should I go back out and try to come back in? Or
Yeah,
what?
try it. Go ahead, try it.
Give it a shot.
Yeah, very nice. You got to be careful with that World Became the World, or it gets. You got to put a cover on it, otherwise you can screw up the slide cover of that. I'm gonna try going back out and see if I can
Okay.
back in. Maybe I'll use my cell phone when I come back.
Okay. We'll be here waiting.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay. It happens. Technical difficulties. All right. So Rand was doing World Became the World and Photos of Ghost, and basically those were re-recordings by the band on Manticore Records of the second and third albums, which are all in Italian.
Well, The World Became the World is a direct re-recording of L'isola di Niente.
Yep.
Photos of Ghost,
Actually, I had stuff from the first album as well.
that's the compilation of the first 2 albums, and it has some unique material. So do you want me to jump ahead and we'll come back to it?
Yep, go ahead. All right, yeah, go ahead. Go to your number 3.
Okay, so my number 3 is L'isola di Niente. So it's a great album, but to me, it almost sounds like a different band. It's got all the elements that you expect from PFM, but the production is a little, to me, is a little off. It's a bit heavier, and there seems to be more emphasis on guitar. So like the first track, you wouldn't even know that it's PFM, that the opening track, it was the title track, L'isola di Niente, on The World Became the World. It's called The Mountain. It's a long track. It's almost 11 minutes. And it's kind of crunchy, and it's like, who the hell is this? So, but the album kind of settles down, and it's got the great keyboards and has all the classic PFM elements. Just it's just a little bit uneven, but it also has one English track, Is My Face on Straight, that it shares with The World Became the World. But otherwise, it's the Italian version, and it's my preferred version.
Cool. Rand's back.
Got my cell phone, so it's going to be different.
Oh, but we can hear you now.
There you go.
Yeah, that was really bad. Can you edit all that out?
Well, it wasn't that long. It was only like a minute or so. We'll see.
All right. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, it
folks.
happens. Did you want to say anything more about those two albums, Rand?
Yeah, they just really mean a lot to me. When I first heard Photos of Ghosts, it's just like, wow, River of Life, Celebration. It was actually on the radio in Sacramento on KZAP FM. Photos of Ghosts is a beautiful song. Old Rain, Il Banchetto, it was my favorite just because of the mini moog, but I did notice they were singing in Italian on that one, which was kind of strange for us, because we didn't know. And then Mr. 9 till 5 just kicks ass. And Promenade the Puzzles, really good. I just love it. And The World Became the World, The Mountain. The opening choir is kind of tantamount to Genesis Watch of the Skies, where you're just like stuck listening to this stuff. If you're driving around, like, and like with a girl or something, and that comes on, it's a little like, what the hell are you listening to kind of like thing. And Just Look Away is a beautiful song. I just love that one. And The World Became the World is, I know it's a remake from the first album, but I just love this stuff. Four Holes in the Ground is probably my favorite song on this one. And the live, and of course, live versions are just way, 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 way exciting. More on that later.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, those are the two first that I ever bought, and just because I was unsure about buying stuff with Italian vocals, and then I listened to the Italian ones, and I'm like, oh, there's like no comparison. So I very rarely listen to those anymore. But my number 3 is going to be Il Solo di Niente from 1974, the third Italian album. I really like this album a lot. And Ken, I think I like it because it's so rocking. And I was sitting here, going back and forth between my top 3, and there are days where this is my favorite out of all of them.
It's a good album.
It is. It's different, right? But I like it because it's different. I chose to put it at number 3 today because I think my first 2 are they're just drop dead classics. Not that this isn't, but I like the title track is just so good. I like the kind of the choir that's going on, the male and female choirs at the beginning, and then it comes in with this heavier electric guitar, and it's a cool little lick, and I don't know, I really like it a lot. You got Mellotron on there, you got acoustic guitars, it's just all sorts of good stuff, and it kind of goes from like this eerie opening to this hard rocking thing to this atmospheric proggy thing, then back to the rock again. It kind of takes you through this whole journey. It's actually one of my favorite songs by them. It's really, really good. You got La Luna Nuova is just big and majestic. Just love that to death. Really, really good stuff. Great keyboards on there. The whole thing is just really, really good. Dolcissima Maria, another really great song. Via Lumera has some kind of little jazzy things on there, which I really like. It's got that kind of counterpoint like Gentle Giant. It's got little Genesis elements. And then My Face on Straight is also pretty cool. It's got a little humor in that, which I kind of like. And that's got the English vocals on it. I really dig it a lot. And it's funny, when I was putting my list together and I went and grabbed my CDs, I realized I did not have a hard copy of this particular one. Of course, I've taken care of that. I ordered it this morning, but I'm like, how the hell do I not own that on CD? So got to rectify that. So anyway, man,
I think I was going to say about Il Solo di Niente, they probably had a bigger budget, bigger recording budget, being on Manicore.
Yeah,
and I think you could hear it. It sounds a little better.
Yeah. It's got a lot of variety to it, which I kind of like.
Yeah, it's definitely, like I said, it's heavy. It's certainly heavier, don't you think?
Oh yeah, yeah.
A little crunchier guitar, and
Yeah, those first 2 albums are not overly rocking at all. I mean,
no,
they have moments, but I think with this album, they kind of brought a little bit more of that to the forefront, which I certainly appreciate. So, all right, Rand, you're number 2.
You know how Ken always says you're wrong?
Yeah.
I won't say that to you because I respect you. But
are you saying that Ken doesn't respect me? Well, I know
No.
Ken says it to Anthony all the time.
No, I'm not saying that. These guys are like peanut butter and jelly for me. I mean, I'm gonna have to tie my number 2.
They go together.
I think this one rocks pretty good. There's pretty exciting stuff on this one.
Yeah,
this one's not so much. This is more pastoral, I think.
Yeah.
But God, they're masterpieces. I mean, really, come on. I don't know if you know, but I got those out of this.
Oh, cool. Yep.
It's and it's funny. It lists Storia di un Minuto, Per Un Amico, and Photos of Ghosts, but it doesn't list this. This is a bonus disc. They don't even tell you you're going to get.
Oh, so they throw it in there and you didn't even know it?
Yeah, isn't that something? That's pretty
Wow.
cool. Huh?
Quite the
But
bargain.
yeah, I mean, God, the first song on this album, Intro de Zillion or whatever. Oh my God, it's going out. These always fall out. They don't hold very well. It's The World Became the World. I mean, it's just
Introduzione.
absolutely the same thing. So, they mixed and matched all these different Italian and the American releases. They're not the same recordings, I don't think. It sounds like they're done differently, even on the instrumentals. But I just love them. I just think that those first two are just absolute masterpieces. Both 10s. There's just no doubt about it. And you guys can go on about them if you want, because I can't say much more about them.
They are masterpieces. I will say, I didn't mention it before, but they, I obviously told what I felt about the English versus the Italian versions, but I will say, Celebration is pretty damn good in its English version. That's a lot of fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
Ken,
that's
back
the
to you.
one they put on the radio. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Peter,
Even the Italian version is a lot of fun. It's pretty upbeat and raucous, and yeah.
Pete, I want you to know I respect you.
Okay, thank you, Ken. I appreciate that.
Well, I didn't mean it like that. I just wasn't going to say you're wrong, Pete.
As somebody once said to me, I'm the abusive father they never had.
That's your thing, Ken. I don't say that.
Oh, boy.
I don't want
All right, what are we doing? Number 2?
Yeah.
I don't want to steal your thunder.
So there's really for me, and actually I'm going to kind of mirror what Rand said. My 2 and 1, it's really like 1A and 1B. So this is 1B for me. I'm going to go the other way. This is Per Un Amico. This was the second album, and actually until recently, I actually thought that it was their first album. They made 2 albums in 1972.
Yep.
So Storia di un Minuto came out in like January 72, and this came out like in November of 72. I find it to be a little bit more delicate, certainly more delicate than the later works, than Le Sole di Niente. Il Banchetto, that's on here, was re-recorded as The Banquet for Photos of Ghosts. That's one of their most famous tracks. A lot of dynamic shadings on this album. Some really beautiful quiet parts. Flavio Promoli's keyboard work, Mellotron. It's just one. It's a great album. It's an essential album. If you're really adverse to Italian vocals, you could hear worse versions sung in English on The World Became, The Photos of Ghosts. So, yeah, this is my number 2.
I had a hard time with my number 1 and 2.
Yeah.
We obviously know what they are. Really nothing separates them. So with, I guess, just wanting to be a little different here, I'm going to go with Storia di un Minuto, the debut, as number 2. You ask me tomorrow, it could be number 1. There's really nothing that separates these at all.
Nothing.
No. Stunning stuff. I mean, from the great album art, which I think is just absolutely lovely. And obviously Ken can show off even better than this, but it's just classic.
I can.
Yeah.
There I go.
Oh, that's sweet.
I mean, look at that. Beautiful. I mean, this whole album is just draped with like acoustic guitars and flute and mellotron and violin. Impressione di Settembre is just a pastoral prog masterpiece. You got the little swells of mini moog and mellotron, add that little bit of bombast when it's needed. E Festa is the Spanish version of Celebration. It's just big, rollicking prog rocker with big bass riffs and heavy guitars, and you got the piano and the moog, great vocals, a little bit of yodeling too, right? If you love, Loria, 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 if you love Focus, right? Like that classic song, you get a little bit of that here too. Makes it a lot of fun. Dove Quando is a 2-part classic. It's part folk, part classical, lovely acoustic guitars and flute and violin and piano, and the drumming is really nice. Just a classic song. What else you got? La Carroza de Hans. You got some kind of like cool little like whisper vocals. They're this band with the vocals, especially before Photos of Go. I mean, before Chocolate Kings, when they had Bernardo on vocals. They're very understated vocals here. This is not Bonko type, like in your face, like operatic stuff. These guys are very much lighter. You got the two guys singing on these albums. And yeah, what else is good on here? Lots of Mellotron on this album. Grazie Davvero has got classical and jazz and chamber elements, the dual vocals. It's an essential album. Absolutely is. Could be number one, could be number two. It doesn't matter. It's got to be up there, either or. So,
I never felt that the vocals were a hindrance. Like,
not at all. They're
vocals
understated.
Yeah, and in fact, you almost kind of wonder why I assume it was Manticore felt the need to bring in Lanzetti.
Maybe because they wanted just a front man, right?
Or they wanted someone who was more comfortable singing in English. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that could be too.
But there was nothing wrong.
These guys are both fine singers.
Yeah.
It's just that the vocals for me are very understated. It's not the focus of the songs. They're there. They're fine. They're very melodic and pleasant. They're just, it's just, I guess, when you listen to this stuff after listening to Bonko, it's like there, that's in your face. And you listen to the later albums, it's there in your face. And these guys on the first few albums, it's mellower style of singing, I guess. Equally, it's great. I mean, I like their vocals. It's not, I generally, when I talk about PFM, I don't always talk about the vocals because they're just, they're part of everything else that's there, and they're great. But back to Rand, number one.
Well, this is going to be really weird, guys, because I'm not doing a tie necessarily, but I'm doing two different versions of the same album. This is my number one, PFM Cook, and my number one, Live in USA, which is literally the same thing. This is the Italian pressing of it, and I've also got the LP, and it comes with a booklet inside, which is really nice, but it won't show up too much on the phone, I think. This is a box set, by the way. It's 3 discs put out by Esoteric. Phenomenal album. I got to see these guys live on this tour in Sacramento. And me and my friend, 1975. And it was the summer of 75, I think. And me and my friend Elton, who was a keyboard player, we went in.
Elton John?
It's funny. His last name was Ross, but when I met him, he said, "My name's Elton." And I go, "Elton what?" And he goes, "John." He thought it was funny. Just like you did.
I used to tell people I was Don Pardo's nephew for most of my life until I got sick of telling that story. Because everybody asked me that. Like, you related to Don Pardo?
Anyways,
can you do the Illinois Anima Bandit for me?
The Illinois Anima Bandit. Sure. Anyways, we went in and watched them, and our tongues were on the floor. They were the most amazing live band I've ever seen in my life, and that includes Gentle Giant opening for Yes. I mean, I think PFM was they were stunning. They were so good. And at the very end, the drummer gets up on his drum stool and jumps over his drum set, which was, I thought, pretty cool. And so after they were done playing, Dave Mason came on. This is the worst example of a billing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's pretty strange. Yeah.
Dave Mason comes out and does All Along the Watchtower. Me and Elton just looked at each other and says, "Let's leave." And we walked out. Dave Mason after one song.
And nothing against Dave Mason, but I'm sure the Dave Mason fans were wondering who the hell these Italian guys were playing before.
I know. It must have been crazy. Just like when I saw Black Sabbath and Yes opened for Black Sabbath, and people were probably going, "What the hell is this? I came here to see Ozzy," But anyway, yeah, PFM Cook, just want to expound on this a little bit. Opens up with 4 Holes in the Ground, 3 times faster than on the album. Dove de Quando is just beautiful. Franco Musita on his Ovation acoustic is absolutely gorgeous. Just Look Away, I always loved that song. Celebration was unbelievable on this album. It is so good. There's so much going on. It's very fast. It's way different than the studio versions. And another thing I noticed about that, since I'm talking about that, the Celebration version on this is way different than on this. They that part you talked about, da, 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 hardly hear it on this. It's really
Yeah, they
mixed,
downplay it. They downplay it.
really, really, really downplayed it, you know, because they knew they were going to put it on radio. And I don't think they wanted that on the FM radio, you know. But yeah, I just think if you're going to get into this band, start here, in my opinion, because PFM Cook is just absolutely stunning from start to finish. The killer version of The World became The World with the Mini Moog solo at the end, and Mr. 9 till 5, and then Alta Loma 5 till 9 is a jam, and they end up doing Rossini's William Tell Overture, and you think you're in the Lone Ranger, when you know.
Cool. All right.
And that's all I got to say about PFM. I love them.
The
Oh, wait,
Italian
I have
version
some honorable
live in
mentions.
USA has significantly better sound than Cook. It's the same album, but there was something went wrong in the mastering of Cook way
Even
back
on this
when. I don't know. I don't know what the esoteric CD sounds like.
Oh, okay,
I
yeah,
can
it
tell you
sounds
the
pretty good.
The old vinyl on that it sounds like dog shit. The Italian version sounds fun.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, my LP is on Numero Uno. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
Also,
I'm sure
I have
Esoteric cleaned it up quite a bit. They do a pretty good job most of the time.
I have one honorable mention, and that is this. This is the original cover.
No,
They
that's
changed the cover on your CD, Pete.
Oh.
I never understood why they do that, but
that's the American cover.
yeah, this is the Asylum record right here.
It's the American cover, not the Italian cover.
Oh, so that's what's going on. Okay.
Now, was that jet lag?
Yeah, jet lag. Yeah, it's got that glider. It's the lyrics on a glider or a paper airplane.
This is the original Italian.
Oh, okay.
That's what I got. Yeah. Okay.
That explains that. Thank you, Professor.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of
Anyway.
Professor, what's your number one?
All right, so my number one, by process of elimination, Storia di un Minuto. Could have been, it's 1A, could have been 1B. It's obvious that they were drawing from the English bands of the day. Between Promoli's Mellotron and Mauro Pagani's flute, you hear a Genesis influence. Yeah, it was just very, nothing really to say. I mean, you know, Impressione di Settembre was re-recorded for World Became the World, and classic PFM. It's got, you know, Pete was saying, you know, it's got all the greats, all the great tracks that became staples of their live shows for years are on it. No, I mean, there's nothing. You guys nailed it.
It's a classic. Yep, it is.
It's a classic. Yeah. So
The debut that strong is really, really awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
you know, it's funny because originally the band was called Equelli. They were like a beat psych band from the late '60s, and eventually they morphed into PFM. So
I didn't
totally
know that.
different sound.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about that and how what they were before they became PFM. It's kind of like the Gentle Giant thing, right? When they were Simon Dupree, you listen to that stuff, and then you listen to that first Gentle Giant album, you're like, whoa, that's quite different. The same
sure.
guys. Yeah.
Le Orme was the same way. Those
Yeah.
original Le Orme singles that came out, they were like Flower Power albums, you know.
Yeah.
The Flower Power singles, I should say. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, this is a must own if you don't have it. This is the version to have.
It's a buy or die, right?
It's a buy or die album.
There you go.
It's one of them.
I'm using that a lot. I might have to owe you some money for that because I've been using it quite a bit.
Well, you know, if I feel strongly about something, that's what I'm going to call it.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of buy or die, my number one is Un Amico, second album, 1972, released in the same year. One of the great Italian prog albums of all time, one of the great prog albums of all time. But this is very pastoral and folky, like Ken mentioned before, mixed with the symphonic elements. Appena un po', which leads off the album, is just absolutely lovely. I mean, the acoustic guitars are great. You got the flute, the harpsichord adds so much to that song. These really nice velvety melodic bass lines, you know, violin and the hard rock guitars come in, the Moog, the Hammond, the Mellotron. It's all there in that song. And you know, the whole rest of the album, vocals are really nice on this album. There's lots of complex kind of counterpoint things at times. I mentioned Gentle Giant. I can hear a little Gentle Giant and early Genesis on this album. The title track is great on here. Il Banchetto, amazing song. Great Moog playing on that as well. The whole thing is just great. Lovely flute on the album too. Lots of mellotron. It's a classic. It's a classic. Lovely album. Mandatory prog. So
the consistency of the material in those first two albums are fantastic all the way through, and that's what, for me, they're interchangeable, really.
They kind of are. I didn't look, but I wonder like how many months they were apart.
I said one came out in January and the other one came out in November, I think.
Yeah.
You know what's weird about that, guys? On Discogs, if you go to that thing they call oldest or whatever, relevance or whatever, they list Per Amico top above Story of Dio. Man, I think that's a mistake.
If you go in and actually look at the listing, they'll say when it was the actual release date.
Yeah,
because that's how I always thought that Per Amico was the first album.
Yeah, that's what I thought too when I saw it on Discogs. You got to be careful about that. Like you said, you got to do some research.
Yeah. I wonder how much of the material was like all written at around the same time. You know what I'm saying? That's like,
yeah,
it's like a lot of those early 70s bands were like that. They released the first two albums like really. I mean, look at Zeppelin, right? Perfect example. They had both of those albums pretty much done right around the same time, and so all this stuff was probably written right around the same session.
Oh
yeah.
I would think so.
Cool.
Can I throw? Oh no, you got to go.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Can I throw a couple of honorable mentions out there?
Yes, you can.
All right. So I don't have access to my CDs in my collection at the moment, but a really strong reunion album they did called Stati di Immagine. Well, I'm going to kill it. The pronunciation.
I will try it. State di Immaginazione.
Yeah.
State of Imagination.
Yeah. All instrumental. Came out and they did it in 2006. Came out after Dracula, and Dracula was very good, but Stati di Immaginazione, I thought it was fantastic. I can't tell you it had a lot of the characteristics of PFM as I remember it. I haven't listened to it in a while. I just remember it being a great instrumental prog rock record. And to me, it was like, here are these guys that they've got it's in their DNA, and they decided to make a prog album, and they made an excellent one. So I like that. Another one that I like, this is on CD also. It's PFM in classic. It's basically them doing their interpretations of classical pieces. So it's prog rock versions of you got Mozart, and what else? You got Dvorak, Saint-Saëns, Mahler. Yeah, it's a pretty nice album.
When did that come out?
And the last one that I think is worth having was a 4 CD live set. Yeah, there you go. So, and by the way, that Stati di Immaginazione, that's out of print, unfortunately. There was a 4 CD live set that came out in '96 called 10 Anni Live, 1971 to 1981. 4 CDs, and each CD was from a different tour. So you got 71 to 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78. And that's worth tracking down. I think they were also, we're taking a walk with Ren. They were released individually as well. And then later on, they, in 2014, they played in Tokyo, and they put out a series of live albums where they did a complete version of Storia di Un Minuto, a complete version of L'Isola di Niente, and a complete version of Per Amico. And they played faithfully, but live, and very, very good. Really pretty high. Yeah, they did The World Became the World, and they did Photos of Ghosts, all recorded in Japan. And I recommend those as well.
This has 2 King Crimson songs, 21st Century Schizoid Man, and Pictures of a City from In the Wake of Poseidon. It's also got My God by Jethro Tull. It's got all their famous songs, 2 versions of Four Holes in the Ground, all kinds of stuff. Even stuff from later on, like Passepartout, which is after the Chocolate Kings. So yeah, or after Jet Lag, I mean, when they went back to their Italian thing. But this is great. It's called A Celebration, and it came out on Snapper. It doesn't sound awesome, but I mean, you know, as far as live albums go, but it's a keeper.
Cool. A lot of good stuff from this band.
And that's all I got from that band. I'm tapped out.
All right. So for everybody watching, just like we did with the Bonko episode, if you are a fan of these guys, list your 5 favorite albums in the comments below. If you've never listened to PFM, well, you got some homework to do. So go out and check out some of these albums and let us know what you think of them. And while you're at it, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here all the damn time here on SOT on YouTube. Make sure you also go visit lasercd.com and check out all the great stuff that Mr. Golden has in the world of prog and prog metal and psych and fusion, all sorts of cool stuff for sale up on Ken's label there. And stay tuned for more stuff here on the channel. I am Pete Pardo. Thanks again to Ken and Rand for contributing to this wonderful episode, and actually 2 episodes of Italian prog, Bonko, and PFM. For Ken Golden and Rand Kelly, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good rest of your Sunday, everybody. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.
Adios.
Bye-bye.